Well, good morning. At least it's still morning right now and it's still coffee time. And if you're like me, you're wondering, when is this coronavirus going to end? What's going to happen? How are we going to manage through this? Well, a lot of people are being affected, not only physically by their health, and even some people are dying, unfortunately, but others are being affected economically and emotionally because a lot of people have lost their jobs, a lot of businesses have shut down. People are worried sick about this. And so, we as Christians, how do we approach this? Well, of course, physically, we do all that we should do was wash our hands, stay clean, stay away from uh, curious or skeptical areas, stay away from other people who may be affected by this, maybe carriers or maybe even sick with it. Let's be careful. But as Christians, let's have faith in our God. Let's look at Hebrews chapter 11. And we know this is the faith chapter. It's called the faith chapter of the Bible, but really it starts back in chapter 10, where the writer is talking about the tribulations and the persecutions that the early Christians were having back then. He ends chapter 10 with verse 39. Let's look at it. But we are not of those who shrink back to destruction, but of those who have faith to the preserving of the soul. That's what faith is. It's for the preserving of the soul. And then it goes on into chapter 11, verse 1, with it's the assurance of things hoped for, it's the conviction of things not seen. Let's look at verse 3. By faith we understand. We understand by and through faith. We understand that the worlds were prepared by God, they were spoken into existence, and so that what is seen was not made out of things which are visible. It goes back to verse 1. Then in verse 4 and those following, it talks about men and women of faith and how they acted, how they lived their lives, lived according to what God wanted them to do out of faith, knowing that God is the creator, and they lived their lives according to that. It was counted to them as righteousness. And what is righteousness? It's being right with God. So, um, back to the coronavirus. What's it for? And we ask, so many people are asking, did God create this? Is God doing this? Is he teaching us a lesson? Is he allowing this to happen through the forces of the darkness? Because Satan does have a force, not a controlling force, but he does have a force. So is this from God or is this from Satan? Folks, I'm here to tell you, it doesn't matter to me because I think God is using it. Romans 8:28 says that all things work for good to those who love the Lord and are called according to his purpose. That's the clinch. That's the key right there. If you're called according to God's purpose, all things are going to work out for good. Now, back to the coronavirus. Let's look at something here. In Jeremiah chapter 29, God is talking about how his people are going to be sent into Babylonian captivity for a period of time. Here's why. For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord, plans for welfare and not for calamity, to give you a future and a hope. Then you will call upon me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you search for me with all your heart. Folks, that's what God did to discipline his people back then. And I think that's what he's doing for us today to bring us totally back to him and rely on him. Let's turn back to Hebrews and let's look at chapter 12, verses 6 through 11. For those whom the Lord loves, he disciplines, and he scourges or spanks every son whom he receives. It is for discipline that you endure. God deals with you as with sons, for what son is there whom his father does not discipline? But if you are without discipline, of which all have become partakers, then you are illegitimate children and not sons. Furthermore, we had earthly fathers to discipline us, and we respected them. Shall we not much rather be subject to the Father of spirits and live? For they disciplined us for a short time, as seemed best to them, but he disciplines us for our good, so that we may share his holiness. All discipline for the moment seems not to be joyful, but sorrowful. Yet to those who have been trained by it, afterwards it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness. Folks, discipline is not enjoyable. We don't like it. But for those who have been trained by it, it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness. So, this pandemic, this coronavirus, has a lot of people worried about this. And worry is a temptation that we have to take us away from the focus of God. Let's look at what Paul said in 1 Corinthians about temptation, worry. No temptation has overtaken you, but such as is common to man. We've had this before. Remember the plague back in the medieval times? And there was the 1918 Spanish flu that came to America. But let's continue. No temptation has overtaken you, but such as is common to man, and God is faithful, who will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you are able, but with the temptation will provide the way of escape also, so that you will be able to endure it. This tells us that within us, within our faith, we have the strength to overcome this. We just have to tap into it because God has placed it there. He's not going to allow us to be tempted beyond what we can bear, but he's going to give us the escape so that we can endure it. I've already talked about Romans 8, verse 28. But let's look at what Jesus said. This is very comforting as to what affects us with this coronavirus and how worried we are. For this reason, I say to you, do not be worried about your life as to what you will eat or what you will drink, nor for your body as to what you will put on. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the air, that they do not sow, nor reap, nor gather into barns, yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not worth much more than they? And who of you, by being worried, can add a single hour to his life? And why are you worried about clothing? Observe how the lilies of the field grow. They do not toil, nor do they spin. Yet I say to you that not even Solomon in all of his glory clothed himself like one of these. But if God so clothes the grass of the field, which is alive today and tomorrow is thrown into the furnace, will he not much more clothe you, you of little faith? Do not worry then, saying, what will we eat? Or what will we drink? Or what will we wear for clothing? For the Gentiles eagerly seek all these things. For your heavenly Father knows that you need all these things. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. So do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will take care of itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. So what does this tell us? Rely on God. God's going to take care of us. What does this mean to me today? Well, understand God's love. Act like Jesus. Live boldly and confidently. Have hope and assurance, all through faith. And may the God of faith, hope, and love, the God of creation, bless and encourage you today. May you be blessed. Go in peace.